All right, hello all. Welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode 114 for Friday, September 8th, 2023 already. Okay. I've entitled this one A Visit with Team Clunker, and while we were not able to do it out at the track, I am with Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Yeah, he's being very nice with the microphone, trying to keep from feedback happening. Anyway, Jerry's out racing here in Texas, and so I took a trip over, and we're broadcasting from his hotel, the classic historic Jefferson Hotel. So a little plug for them. All right. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plant an App. This is an event we do every Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. This hour we do a all skill levels welcome meeting. That's a gathering where we get together, talk about Plant an App and the challenges that we've been facing. All of these editions are recorded and put out on YouTube, so youtube.com/plantanap. And so we encourage you can use that QR code or go out to youtube.com/plantanap and watch past episodes. We run a pretty simple agenda. We stop and say hello, and then we always start, well, we usually start with first call, but we've got to do ghost stories first. But then we'll do first call and talk about whatever you want to do. We'll go for about an hour or so, and then after a while, we will go to Afterglow. This is where we turn the recording off, raise a virtual beverage, and just have a nice chat. We run simple guidelines, so be nice to each other and mute if you've got noise going on in the background. You can submit questions and topics in advance, and you can use that QR code or the links we send you in the emails to get that done. With that, I will say hello. Hello to a bunch of regulars.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, morning.
So the ghost story is that the historic Jefferson Hotel is haunted, and or at least it says it is. So yeah, we're at the historic Jefferson Hotel. This is where Jerry stays whenever he's in town, getting ready to race and beat the competition in vintage motorcycle racing. So that's our location
Cool.
today.
The background looks very
Eclectic.
yeah, eclectic.
Funny it seems to look at.
Yes, it is. Let me.
Oh, I can see you in Jerry's picture in the background. There you are.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, well, maybe in Afterglow I will show you around a little bit, but that picture really is that video that I was showing a second ago. That's what it looks like. It's very, very eclectic. All right.
It's fun.
Welcome back. All right, so we'll do the share screen thing again. So we drop into first call. Anybody think got something going on?
I have something.
Good deal.
See if I get going here. Hi there, everybody. The merge PDFs. I have a situation where I've got a batch of records. Each one is going to generate a form. Again, government application where they love their forms. So collect the information. I've got it in a table. We talked about it last time where you suggested executing a queue. Great idea. So that's the plan now. And every so often, I'm going to jump in to see what records were added since the last time I did it, and then build a PDF of the submission of the individual application. Then merge that in with a newly created single document, which is the date and time stamp or something. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm running off 20 different applications that have been filled in the hour before. So how do you start that? The merge thing says, give me two files. The first file doesn't exist yet because the first file is the first PDF in that I create. and I want to merge that with the second, third, fourth through nth. How do you get it started?
I was waiting for Dale because it looked like he was getting ready to maybe go to a
Can I,
to an
can I
example.
jump in while Dale is pulling whatever he's
Yeah,
pulling
of
up?
course.
Sure.
If you are processing the queue in the sense of pulling out all of the records, let's say through a SQL statement, and you're creating an entity list,
Yes.
or excuse me, a list. I keep calling it entity, sorry. Old habits die hard. If you're creating a list and then propagating through that list, processing that list, each list comes with, I believe it's $index as a field that tells you the record that you're currently processing, and it starts at 0. So what you could do is you can create logic to say, if your index for the records that you're processing is currently at 0, that means you're running them on the first record, so you don't have a previous one to create yet, to merge with. So you're just going to create the PDF, and then you're not going to merge it with anything. The next go around, your index is greater than 0, so you could take the previous PDF you created plus the new one you're creating and merge them. So you're basically going to create conditional statements in your actions to handle the fact that on your very first go around, you're going to skip the merge. You're just going to create the PDF and you're not going to merge it.
Oh, that gets
As
very,
long as the index is greater than 0, then you could do both.
I follow that logic, except now I've got to know what my previous PDF name was. Because
Token.
right now, the easy thing I thought would be the way I was if there was no such thing as the merge understands that if you only have one of them, that it merges into the, it merges the one file that you have and the other file that doesn't exist into a new file, and then the next time around it would take the new file and then merge the next thing with the new file, and et cetera, that would be fine. But now I need to know what the previous one was, and I don't have that because I've moved on to the second record. So how do
Not
I know what
necessarily.
previous?
Just
So
store it into a token
yeah,
using create update tokens. After you generate the PDF, take that, whatever it is, whatever you're using, the ID, the file name, whatever, just dump it into a tokenized name, a variable, and call it like previously generated PDF. And then in your next round, reference previously generated PDF along with your current one.
Okay, I guess
and you
that's
keep on, and for each iteration, and this is very fresh in my mind because I've just been doing this with a client, and for each iteration, you keep you keep updating the same token with the new ID. So you keep that flowing along, and then that way you're always taking your so for later iterations, you're taking your previously merged PDF and you're merging it to a new merged PDF, and then you take the name of that file and pass, or the file ID, whatever, and pass that along to the next iteration. You follow what I'm saying? So each time you're taking your previously merged PDF and merging it to the one that you just created, and keep merging them together and keep passing along passing along the ID.
Right. That I get that. The problem, of course, is what happens when there's only one. And so I've skipped it the first time. It comes back around in the loop, and there isn't a second one. So it passes
You have
down. So now I have to have additional logic there. So I thought it would be simpler if I just created a dummy type, remember the old days where you had a print queue and you had a print queue job header page? Well, I'll just generate a header page that says, these are the jobs for this time. And then and then that's the file to merge into.
I don't think you need to do that.
Yeah,
Because
I was going to say, why do you have a problem?
Well, and along
Sorry.
with what along with what Ben was saying about the fact that you have the index, you also have a token called count. So you know exactly how many you're going to have to create, and so you can actually create a threshold using repeat, or so there's different possibilities you have there, but you can create a threshold using the count token, so you know how many pages you're going to have based on the count.
All right, I saw in the documentation, Dale just had it on the screen, where there's a dollar index that says
Mhm.
what record I'm at. So
Yep.
what is the format of this count?
It's
There it is.
it's the list name : count. Yep, there it is right there.
All right, great. So if
Perfect answer,
the count is 0, I do nothing. If the count is 1, I do it one time. If the count is X, then I do this previous PDF thing.
Well, not necessarily. I'm sorry. Before I jump in, Dale, did you just say something?
No, are you guys having a hard time hearing me today?
You can hear you.
That came through clearly.
That came through.
Okay.
No, Don, I was gonna say, and maybe because I just don't fully understand your use case, but if you've got a loop going through a list, if you don't have anything in that list, that loop is not going to run.
Yep.
So you're not generating any files. It's just skipping the whole entire thing. So
Got it.
why do you need to test for 0 count?
I guess I don't need to test for 0, but I do need to test for 1, because the way that you described it, you go into the thing, into the loop. You know that it's greater than 0, so now you're in the loop. You go to the create the PDF for that first thing. That's great. You go to the next step, which is, should I merge or not? And the answer is no, because you're at your first record, and there's you haven't started, don't have a second one to merge with. And then the third, if it goes through that and then it comes back around, it stops the loop because you've only had one record and now you're out of the loop. So now at the end of that, now you have to test to see if you only had one, because the file that you were going to send them, which was the bulk file, is now just the single file. And so I need to know that. So I need to test for 1. And then of course I have to test for 0, 1, and multiple, because 0 says don't send an email, or send an email that says there wasn't any, whichever. 1 says you got to change the name of the first created PDF into the bulk name PDF to send that, or send that instead of the bulk PDF. And then N is send the bulk PDF.
Okay.
Yeah, another design at a high level would be to say that the result of the initial generate would be that name would be in a token that you would always have a final name token that you would attach. So the logic after you exit the loop would always be the same. You're always going to attach the final PDF token to your email.
I see. Yeah.
And just make sure that whichever logic path is taken, whether it's the one path or the merged path, that final PDF token is the one that you
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Right.
But there's lots of ways to skin that when you're in there, but it's yeah, you could do it with more if statements as well. So lots of, I say if statements, conditions. Yep.
Is that a typical use case for other folks where you don't know how many, but you know that you need to send something? It's going to be either 1 or many, or 0, I guess. But in the case of the merging, to the point where can't the merge PDF know that? So if you give a file name that doesn't exist, it knows that, well, ignore it, just take the first one, and then the output is the output.
Right. So
yeah, that logic inside merge PDF.
Your merge PDF is going to be conditional. I wish I could find the
I
simple
think-
example I have of this, but I can't.
I think the question is, could merge PDF be smarter? Yes, but I think as it is, it's expecting two files to merge. That's its.
Right, exactly. So step one, I get it, and I can work with that now, and that makes a lot of sense. So thank you there. And step two is, should it be smarter?
Also with that idea of having a token that is the PDF file, if that token were blank at the start, and it should be, right? So if you have 0 and you're going to send out an email that says everything's attached, you could still attach, attach from token PDF file here, and because it's empty, it's not going to do anything. So if your email, you can still get away with only having one email action, right?
Got it. That makes sense. Is the token there a file ID of 0, or is the token null to indicate that there's no file?
Just an empty string, I think, will work.
Got it. Okay.
That would be my assumption.
So, and to deal with the logic of the first PDF as opposed to whether or not you are going to merge, what I did with one of our other clients was, so you output your initial PDF into the file ID into a token, and then later on you have a create update tokens that takes that ID and puts it into the same ID that you're using for the merge PDF. And so that way, for the first iteration, you're putting that ID into that same token that you're going to eventually have be the merged PDF. So no matter whether you have one page or you have 2 pages, you're always going to have the token for the attachment. It's going to be the correct token. If it's only 1 page, it's going to be the token for the ID of the generate PDF action. If it's more than 1 page, it'll be the ID of the merged PDF, because the create update tokens is conditional for just page 1 to put the PDF ID into, and then if there's more pages, then you have a second create update tokens that's conditional for page number greater than 1, where you're putting the merged ID into the token that you're passing along for each iteration. That's how we dealt with that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And as a reminder, under file management, we have things like delete file and rename file, so you can manage so that you don't end up with a bunch of extra files in your system, right?
Exactly.
So you can clean up as you're working on that through that loop, and then of course you got to have the file exist on your system to attach it to the email, but maybe at a later queuing spot you could do a delete file, the next day, once, or even 10 minutes later, immediately after the email's gone out, even you could delete the file. So thinking about keeping it clean, you've already mentioned in prior calls how you've got more files than you wish you had, so keeping your temporaries clean.
Exactly. We have offsite storage, and they want to be able to they do want to have that. I'm arguing with them that you can regenerate it anytime you want because you have all the information in the database. They're slowly coming around to understanding that. They think that the information exists on that PDF. But great, thank you.
Good. All right. More first call. I have as always, a topic in my back pocket to talk about, but I'm not in a rush to. So if there's somebody else please jump in.
One quick follow-on is the PDF, the information that's generated. Is it a file ID, or is it the name of a file?
You have the options of doing
You can ask for that it's a file ID.
you have the several different, there they are.
Ah. So which is the file ID?
It doesn't give you. Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah, DNN
Store
file ID. Yeah.
Yep. Never mind.
Ah, there you go. DNN file ID. Perfect. Can you use that DNN file ID on the merge? Like give it
That's
two
what
file IDs?
that's what the implementation that we did was, yeah,
Great.
using
Yeah,
the
that's
file
perfect.
ID.
Yeah, we have offsite storage in Azure, so the URL becomes this big ugly blob
You
thing.
know, interesting. That says that there, Dale, but I've tested it. The file ID works as well. So.
And so you've created a quick win bug report to fix this wording in our.
Okay.
You know, I was working yesterday. We're undertaking an effort to do better testing, or do more and automated testing. Every release that comes out, I mean, first of all, we have a guy dedicated, Manu. A lot of you've probably dealt with Manu, but he's in our QA department. He does ongoing QA as features are developed. But then as we come on to getting a release out, I spend, and we all spend time. I have an organized way of 2, 3, 4 hours of going through all the things that you guys have ever reported as being broken. Once they're fixed, I try and make sure that they stay fixed. So where was I going with that? I'm in the midst of writing helping with a team that's writing this automated testing, and in that, what we're going to do is have simple forms that the automation can fill in the forms and click a button, and as a result, whatever variables whatever context comes out of that is going to be checked, and just to make sure that we're getting out the things that we expect to get out. So it's just going to be it's one way that we can set up testing very easily, quickly, and test a lot of things, or set up a lot of test cases. Anyway, in looking at that, just like this thing, this PDF accepts a file ID and it doesn't say that it does. I was looking at drop downs, and there's some outputs that I didn't expect aren't part of the documentation of what comes out of drop downs. So there's, I'm pointing at myself, Patrick, in the same way that when I learn that there are other outputs that other people might be able to take advantage of, I need to get those into the documentation as well. Don't mean to give you a hard time, or at least I do mean to give you a hard time, but I'm pointing at myself too. Okay, since
Can I jump
yeah,
in on something?
please
Just
do.
an afterthought with what Don was mentioning. Just out of curiosity, Don, is there a reason why you are I mean, the way it sounds is you're generating each PDF based off of data in the database that you're processing through. Is there a reason why you're generating a PDF and then merging it to another PDF and so forth and so on, and not just generating one PDF?
That's a good question. That's what I know of the tool. The reason I have to have PDFs is because government, they love to have their PDFs.
No, I understand that. That's not a problem, but I'm just saying.
I don't know how to generate a multi-page PDF. I guess that's the question. I do have multiple records, and I could generate one PDF if I knew how to generate a. My mind is a whirl here of how you might do that, and you're like each page would be a token, and you generate a loop that builds a giant token.
You would basically have some sort of a template of what you want your page to be, with whatever, pieces you want to replace. And then each go around, you're going to build the entire page and then append it to whatever token you have that has a running tally of all your pages,
There's
all the
a
HTML for everything.
I think
And then
Dale's
when-
almost going to find it here, but there's a something you can put in with WKHTML that will tell it to start a new page. And I've used it before, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I've done it as well. You
Yeah.
put it at the like a tag on a
Mhm.
div, and it forces a new page.
Yep.
So even if your text is not a full page, if it only covers half the page, if you have that tag at the end, it forces it to immediately break to a new page. But once you basically build all that HTML, then you just send that HTML to the generate PDF. You generate one PDF and that's it. Because the way you're working, it's a lot of CPU cycles and disk cycles, because you're creating a page, creating another PDF, merging it, creating a third PDF, then creating another PDF, merging that, it's a lot of disk IO. You
Yes.
can save yourself all of that CPU time and make it a lot faster if you generated just the text HTML and just generated one PDF at the end.
That's cool, and that would be great. So the trick is, the loop would then generate, I guess, build a giant token, like I said, because the generate PDF asks for the HTML. So the HTML then it would just be token.
Right. Whatever your final tokenized value is that holds.
Right. And in the loop, if the
info.
count is greater than, if I'm going to go through it a second time, I then drop in the page break and then start the loop again and keep doing that until I get to the end of the loop.
Correct.
That's cool. That I have to check to see if for some reason they need to have that PDF, the individual application in some kind of a digital format. Of course, I could provide right now, in fact, I have that where if they want a new PDF generated from a record, they just click the record and they get a PDF of it. But what they want is literally they want an email that says, here's a batch of PDFs to print out. And that's what I've come up with is a timed bulk email to them.
Yeah. Just so you know, I just looked at what I did. I have a table, and basically in the HTML code, table style, however I want to style it. And at the very end of that style, I have page -break -before : always. So putting that in basically tells the system page break before you reach this, like this piece right here starts a new page.
Oh, I see. Got it. So there is no special logic that says add this code. You just make the single page div.
It's a style tag. It's a style tag to some HTML element.
Page always, page break always, before always. And then if it's just one page, it just prints out one page. It's not like it'll print a second page. The style stuff knows, it's smart enough to know just print out the one page.
No, if you do page break always, when it hits that, it's going to do a page break. So even if it's on the first page, you're going to wind up with a blank page before it.
That's bad.
So you'd have to do some test to say, if you're on the very first iteration, don't attach that style to that element. And every successive element, you do attach that style.
Yeah, or you can do what IBM does, right? This page intentionally left blank.
Back to my job header page, which solved my original problem. So I could do that. But yeah, I like that idea of just not generating all those individual PDFs so that I can end up generating one large PDF. I'd rather just generate it once.
And I'm double checking. I'm on my, is this Stack Overflow article showing?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah. So it did take me a minute to find it, but there we go.
I knew of the page break before always, but I'm confused as to how to change the style on a second page. so that it now does that as opposed to
Well, anything in the HTML that's in here, any of this can be tokenized, right?
yes.
So you can logically add that this whether or not you add this P class new page can be part of your logic. Because it could be, for example, P class blank or P class new page as a token.
Then it would be similar to what we were talking about earlier with, passing along tokens to each iteration, except this time we're talking about create update token. So your first, you could do the same logic that we were just talking about. Your first iteration would have a specific token that would be put into the main token, and then subsequent iterations would have a conditional logic for different create update tokens that includes the page break. And you would and then you would piece that together with the previous token. So it would be similar logic.
Okay.
So you just have to create a condition for your first page, and then if you have subsequent pages, you keep joining the subsequent pages to the you keep updating the same token over and over again.
Yes, I think I got that.
So one example would be that you could have a token that on the first iteration had a value of blank, and at the second iteration and onward had a value of new page, and then you would always have a P class and then the token name instead of new page, and so it would just replace that into it each time, whatever the value was as you were loading content into the. Oh, wait a second.
That makes sense.
Well,
So at the
No,
bottom,
I got sideways there. Sorry.
yeah, no, that
John,
makes
there's a token that I created. I actually shared it with someone else. It's a return if that I have that would basically kind of do what you're, I think, asking. Because without some sort of logic, what you would end up having to do is creating two templates, one template that doesn't have the break and one that does, which just adds to the management of it, because if you ever change that template, you got to change that template in two places, because you really have two templates, one that has a page break and one that doesn't. So if you added an extra line, fix the typo, whatever it is, it's two locations. You have to remember to fix it. If you want, you can create one template using the logic, and I could send it to you, of a token that's return if, and basically would say, for example, if when you're running through the loop, the page is the very first page. So say page number, let's just say for argument's sake, if page number is equal to 1, then return blank. Otherwise, return page break always. Page break before always. So as you're looping through it, the very first time you go through it, it's not going to insert that style, because that's that token that you have there, because it's the first page. But every time it goes through and it's not the first page, it will insert that style. So it's just one template that automatically will insert it on every subsequent page, but not the first. And that allows you to have just one template and not have to worry about keeping multiples.
Sure. I was thinking of I don't know if it's the same usage here, but I was thinking if I had a token for what the class is, I set at the very top of the exercise here, I would set the class to be first page, and there's a style for first page that doesn't include the page break before always, and then at the bottom of the loop, before it goes to the second iteration of the loop, I would just say change that token, the what class it is, to the subsequent class, which includes the page break always. And then it does that every single time it goes through the loop. But that's great, because that means that when it goes through the loop the first time, it uses the initial setting, which is the first page that doesn't have the page break always. And then when it gets to the bottom of the loop, it says the class is now the subsequent class, and it just sets that each time and That's all there is to it. No additional
Good.
logic. That's that.
Just for clarity, all this stuff is going to get loaded into a, you're going to have to create a token that is going to be the full text, your HTML that's going to be turned into a PDF. And
Right.
when you dump it in, and so you're going to end up having something like this
Yep.
as your HTML code. And so that's going to get evaluated all at one time. And so if there's a token
Oh,
in there, it's going to get evaluated to the same value. And that's why I think Ben was talking about you're going to need a conditional or some way.
doesn't, so if there's tokens inside this token,
And actually,
uh,
this is not going to do tokens within tokens. So you're going to have to use a create update tokens to expand all those before you get here.
Right. When you get to this part, your one token inside whatever's in there has to be completed.
pure HTML, no
Right.
token. Yeah.
Exactly. So your loop logic has to make sure that it's building each iteration as clean HTML untokenized.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah, I think that's smarter to build it that way without them doing the merging stuff.
Okay, so I wanted to go with the thing that that I brought along, and it mostly is because Jerry and I here together, but we Jerry in both Cafe and Campfire talked a lot about mapping and demonstrated how to do that with Google, and I've undertaken to do it with a different tool, which is Leaflet. Anybody used Leaflet? It is very similar in terms of, or let's say it's not the JavaScript behind it, very similar to the way that you do the JavaScript for other mapping. And yet it has some other capabilities that I needed for a different project. So the end effect that I got here, this is a map of my area. Here's where I live. So one of the things it has is, and you can use standard kind of markers that look very much like other map markers, but it also lets you easily incorporate font awesome. So now all of a sudden you've got 2,000 different free icons that you can use, or 20,000 if you want to pay the fee. And so font awesome integration, that was a cool one. But another one was that it has the ability to, you can click on the map. And so, for example, I wanted to be able to select an area that I was going to, I wanted to get all the properties within a particular area. And so I say add polygon. So I built all this with their stuff. It's pretty simple JavaScript. And notice like the pointers that I used, 1, 2, 3, 4, those were dynamically generated. You could go, as many as you can. You don't have to determine your. So it's doing that through a JavaScript variable to generate those. So there's like the ability to dynamically generate, the ability to use font awesome. It also has the ability, which I've seen it work. I haven't integrated into my project yet, but to sense your current location if you're on a device that has and allows GPS transfer of the current latitude, longitude. So very similar to what Jerry was showing us, but just a different library, different approach, all open source stuff.
The beginning, Dale, is this your visitors interface, or is this the you're in Plan an App, right? So this is your output of the using the tools.
Right. In this particular use case, I'm an administrator. This is done in an action form. I'm the administrator of the site, and I want to select an area of interest. And so this add a polygon logic is letting me pick an irregular sized area to work with. And so this particular part is not for visitors, it's for the administrator. But the people that will be, and the end users will also be using this, and not this add polygon stuff, but now that addresses have been selected, and there be a sign to go out and visit these addresses, and so it would end up with these an interface with markers like this that they'd be able to click on and interact with that particular address. Is that the question you were asking? You're muted. Okay. So one of the things that this is really at the proof of concept stage. I proved that you can put HTML here and have links and go other places. So it's very easy to add that. And just, I mean, I'm not really in a spot to be able to demonstrate too much. Again, it's just a proof of concept, but behind the scenes, this is a static text field. I've loaded a couple of libraries. So there's the Leaflet, there's some the Leaflet CSS and some Beautify marker CSS. That's what allowed me to get into Font Awesome. There's some JavaScripts that needed to be put on the page. Font Awesome version 6 needed to be put on the page. So there's some load things that happen in advance. But then this static text with the JavaScript has things like, I'm just going to pick one here at random, well, not at random, one of the areas that that one that I was doing where I was clicking the map and getting a different marker every time. It's using point count, so point count starts at 1, and then or 0, and and 1 gets added to it every time you click, because this is an on-map click event. So I'm creating a marker dynamically with the text of the marker being point count, and then that is marker options, which when I actually create the marker on the screen, I'm using the marker options to create it. So it reads pretty easily, I think, and I think it would have the same kind of functionality. I have yet to test it for the thousands of marker points like we were doing, and like Jerry demonstrated that that happened very fast. But this is advertised as a very fast and lightweight module. So anyway, that's my plug for Leaflet, and it's pretty well documented. There's plugins that go with it to do more things. So kind of freeing, has some different capabilities than other mapping, and so just letting you know that it's out there and seems to work.
Thanks for bringing that up, Dale. That looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I showed it to Jerry earlier, and he was asking about clustering because his mapping does that, and I see that there is an add-in that does clustering. I haven't played with that part of it at all, but you know, rather than trying to display 100 marker points, to be able to say, oh, there's 100 markers in this represented in this one icon. So I think it looks like it would be there. I see heat map and lots of these different things that are available. So anyway, very interesting. All right, what else?
Incidentally, I see that you will be supporting Volodymyr and the people of Ukraine by helping him out. And he's got an opening statement on his website. So definitely jump over to leafletjs.com and read it.
Absolutely, good point. Yep, apparently this has been around for a while too. I don't know whether it says, I think it's 5 years, 10 years, but it's been around. And so it has some stability, obviously some energy behind it. So stability for us supporting them, it's a good deal. So just updating you on my plans after Afterglow today. I think Jerry's going to take me out to the track. We wanted to do this from the track, but it was A, hot, and B, of questionable internet and electricity. So it might not have been a good idea, but we'll get some pictures with Clunker. If you followed it all, Jerry has Jerry's. What do you drive? I'm sorry, Clunker. What's Clunker's role versus your role, Jerry?
I'm sorry, Dale, ask the question again.
Your role versus Clunker's role when you're on the track.
I just sit there and steer. Clunker does all the work. That's my role. Kind of like a horse jockey. There, and let the horse do its thing, and yeah, no, it's pretty fit. And since it's an old bike, it's cantankerous, and it's more like riding a bucking bronco and trying to hang on to it. Instead of hanging on for 8 seconds, I'll have to hang on for about 20 minutes twice. So yeah. And for those of you that are not in Texas, it's hot, guys. It is really hot this year. I was here last year, and I don't remember it being this hot.
I'm not going to be around for the actual race, but I'm hoping to get out and see the sights, and got stuff going on tomorrow. That's where the real action is. I'm sorry I'm missing that, but anyway, that's the story here. Okay, I'm going to navigate and find another thing because we have a couple of more minutes to fill. But if you somebody else wants to talk, I'm open.
A quick plug for DNN Summit. DNN Summit.
Coming up in
Nice work, Don.
And speakers are called from until the end of the month. So you have until the end of the month. I'm sure there's some projects that we can show off. The very cool addition to a DNN website called Plan an App at DNN Summit. I plan to do just that. I've got a couple of talks in mind. I'm writing up what they're going to be about to help try to sway them to have me speak.
I believe that Plant an App is planning to submit. Thanks for the reminder that that's coming up. We don't want to miss it.
Good deal, guys.
I know that I'll go ahead and be on record as saying that Mitch is a bit of a stickler for open source versus paid modules. But when you've got an application that you're showing, oftentimes, and I've done this for a number of different things, we've talked about EasyDNN and we've talked about Plan an App and a couple of different items that are paid modules, but that enhance, extend the DNN platform and show a very cool application, and he likes those. It's, obviously we can't do just a sales pitch in a session, or if you do, there's a special section that they have, which is pure, sales pitch type meetings, which is great. But if you can show how a module can really, get a win for you, your customer, et cetera, and it's based on DNN and Plan an App, then by all means, show those things. So if you got one of those, sign up.
So I've wandered on to a couple of things. This is the testing site that I was telling you about earlier, and what I was learning about the outputs of different fields, different field types. So I'm going to add a drop down here. And we'll give it some, we'll just use the default, just the way it comes, and save this. And so now we have a drop down, and I'm going to pick second item off the list and hit test. Oop, this is required. And so my logic here is outputting all of the values that in name value pairs that can't come out of that are loaded in context. And because it's so hard to read it that way, I'm going to go over to my favorite code beautify here. And let's see, this is JSON. So coming out of that drop down, of course, it was name drop down. There was the text called second item. There was a path that has slash with different values. So I'm not sure that path is, I don't know what's listed as outputs. Let's see. A drop down says that it has field name text, it has path, value, and that's it. But we see that there's path, there's value, there's also a has children functionality that I wasn't aware of, whether or not it's selectable, an item ID, a parent path is other. So there's a lot of stuff behind there that I didn't realize was part of that. So I've got some documentation to do. So that was the follow-up from that earlier topic.
Hey, Dale,
Yes, sir.
is there an option for showing an additional column in the SQL? Can we,
In
if
the
we add a
drop-down?
third column in the drop down that's not, it's not text or value, can we get it?
No. Those that I know of, that's all that's there.
I've wanted to do the same thing, Mark, before, and
Only about 1,000 times.
I get it. Yeah.
I've lost count how many times I wish we had that
Yeah.
ability, because that's like
Yes.
something that you could do in like
Mhm.
Windows applications. You can have
Yeah.
hidden columns, and unfortunately, I've never figured out a way to do that easily.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dale, it was worth a try.
No, it's always good to ask. No problem.
It's a note though that maybe we can put in a feature request or something, but it would be handy to have some sort of other piece of data that you could access in a drop down. That would be
Yeah, right now we have value and we have text and value.
yeah.
And yep.
So that little bit of code that you have will show me any tokens that are in context for the fields that I've put on my form, because I've stumbled through, what values are available to me many a time.
So yeah, this is a action that I coded and actually just brought up to date yesterday for version 125 because there were some changes. But yes, this action, which I will be happy to put out on Campfire, just says take everything and put it into result as name value pairs. So wherever you are at the moment, it will output it.
Wow.
Say wherever you are, whatever the current context is, it just goes through and grabs it all. I have it. It's really two files, and I'm sure it's easy enough to create a .dnn installer package, but I haven't done that yet. So it's a DLL and a config file for this action. So you'd have to just put two files onto your system. it's real easy, and I don't know which is going to be harder, to document it where the files go or to just build an installer, but I'll put it out on Campfire.
It's easy to
great.
put system. It's difficult to know where to put those files.
Yeah. The other one, this is a kind of a ghost story that Patrick and I encountered yesterday, earlier this week. We were looking for ultimate efficiency. We have a client that has a slow loading system, very internet challenged system. And so we wanted to make sure that it was loading as efficiently as possible. And so one of the things that they have is a what do we call these, computed field that is using tokens, and I constructed a workflow token that does an echo. So whatever it is that's being passed in gets echoed back out with some dashes around it. And then I was testing to see, I've made this more complex than it needs to be. I'm actually evaluating it twice. But the thing that we learned is that when you have a token, and let me just clean this up to be just a simple case, if I can do it on the fly here. So this is just calling a token with the display name. This is a user ID listing, and save. So when we refresh this, it's just being evaluated once. Come on. So the token is appearing here. So that's the simplified version. Unfortunately, what we got into with the logs, what we discovered is that every token, when you do this, is being evaluated twice. So if you have an inefficient or a time-consuming process, like a Razor script or a complex SQL that's doing something and displaying content, it's actually evaluating twice, which we're going to look into as a bug. But just remember, at the current, we haven't tested this for earlier versions, but just remember in version 125 at least, using a token in a grid gets evaluated twice. Every token gets evaluated twice. So, in our testing, I pushed it out and said, okay, I'll put a delay in this token for a second, and I'm displaying 10 records, and it was taking 20 seconds to display that. So if you're trying for ultimate, I mean, it's a very convenient feature, right, to be able to drop a token into a grid, but and it's only the ones that are being displayed that are being evaluated, not the ones like we've got, this is 27 records, it's only doing 10 when it's doing that, but it's doing it twice. So be aware of that. And if you have something that is time consuming, you might, I think Patrick in his case was that he was asking me about, we considered flipping it from a Razor token into SQL that gets evaluated with the data source rather than putting it as individual calls and then duplicated individual calls via tokens.
It's pretty complex. It'll probably become a view.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Dale. I know I've added tokens to a listing, and it does slow it down, and I didn't realize at all that it was doing it twice for each one.
Well, we just learned it. I just learned it this week. Again, it may have been doing it forever. It may be something new. But that and also, if you're like I have in ancient cafes, I did one where we were tracking, for example, what people are looking at on a view, like from a security perspective. Did they view this record? Well, if you put that token to capture that event in a listing, it would show up twice. It's just, extra logging, maybe doubling your counts, whatever it is that you're using that for. So
Couldn't you get around this by caching the token?
It's still
Speed-wise?
evaluating it twice.
Yeah, it's still evaluating
could-
twice, but if it's a 30-second, or I'm just throwing a large number out there,
Sure.
it takes 30 seconds to run, it's not going to take 60 seconds. It's still going to take 30 because the second run is just going to take the stored value.
Correct. Caching will improve the would be a performance improvement. Absolutely. And we were looking at that first, but then we just kind of stumbled onto this other characteristic and wanted to mention it.
A follow-up question too.
Yeah.
You mentioned it doesn't get evaluated if it's not in display. Does that carry over to if you've got a details view that the user can open or not open? Does the
I didn't try it there. That's a good question. Does it get evaluated into the details view? That's your homework, Mark. Let me know.
I've been
You know, I
wanting to know that
delegated-
recently, actually. You know, what else could I put in the detail view? Sometimes I cram quite a bit in there, and I wondered, does that all get rendered, whether it's used or not, whether it's seen or not?
That's a great question, because if it's putting something inefficient or long running into a details view, if it only happens when it's rendered, man, that would be terrific, right? You get all the efficiency and
Right.
the listing, and then
Only when
the
you
ones
need it.
care about. Yep.
Mhm.
Have to look at that. Okay, we've hit our hour, and another amazingly successful low-code campfire. Thank you guys
Amazing.
for all the yeah, see, a little self-promotion there, but hang around for Afterglow if you want, and if not, well, we'll see you next week. Happy low coding.